Good morning, everyone. Hello, hi from Paris. This is Arthur Joannick from Delta EE. We will talk today about the new trends in the connector market, and we'll have a 45 minutes webinar with some exciting new research that we have done in the last few months. During this webinar, you will be able to ask questions anytime. You will be able to comment on some of the stuff we are saying. If you agree or disagree, feel free to use the question box in the software to let us know. This webinar will last approximately 45 minutes. We will try to keep it on time. We know sometimes we tend to run over because we like what we are talking about and sometimes get into many details, but we'll try to keep it to that time. If we don't have time to answer your questions after the webinar, we will get back to you and try to get a chat to answer the questions. So don't hesitate to say hello. I can already see a question. Will the copies of the presentation be circulated afterwards? Yes, we will send an email to everyone. And if you want the slides, just let us know. We will send it to you by PDF. And of course, if you want more details on the data and the research behind this, we'll be very happy to talk to you about how to access the research. So let's get started. The team today, so myself, Arthur, on the left, I will be moderating this webinar, and I'm joined by my three colleagues, Ricardo, Alex, and Sushang. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi,
Alex. Hi, Sushang. Hi, Ricardo. How's everyone?
Good. Happy to be here.
Great. Well, as you can see, each of the three have different specialties in terms of the research they have been doing, but we are all connected home geeks and enjoy talking about this topic. So if in case you want to have a chat after the webinar, we'll be very happy to tell you more about what we're doing and very keen to know about what you guys are doing. So don't hesitate to get in touch. As I mentioned a bit before, there are a few webinar rules, but basically there is no rule if you want to interrupt with questions, if you want to get the slides. We will try to ask all the questions that are being asked in the question box. Usually we get quite a few. We might answer you by writing, we might answer you by voice directly, or get back to you afterwards. But before we start, we suggested to start with a little poll. We are basically curious about how you guys are doing actually during these difficult times. We heard a lot about the start of the lockdown, that a lot of companies had almost no sales because of lockdown and transports and manufacturing stopping. Then we heard some companies actually recovering quite fast. We were curious actually to see how things have evolved after 6-7 months, if you have recovered, if it's still difficult times. And yeah, we know it can be quite difficult and times are still uncertain, but we're actually quite optimistic about this market because it's a high growth market. More and more companies believe this is something that they have to do, so that strategies are evolving towards the right directions. Governments are announcing a lot of plans for recovery, and that often includes energy efficiency and therefore controls. So that's usually good for connected controls. I'll give it another 5 seconds or so to get the results. We have about 2/3 of the people who have voted already. And I will try to see how I can share the results of that. I will now close the poll and share the results. Are you able to see this? Perhaps. I don't know if you can see that, but anyway, we have about 47%.
Yeah, we can see it.
You can see it, okay. So yeah, 47%, so half of the people saying you're slowly recovering, which is encouraging, and actually quite surprisingly, 28% back as normal. So that's nice to see, and a few people are actually benefiting from the lockdown situation, or actually continuing their growth. So that's nice to see. Sorry to hear about companies are still impacted, but I'm quite sure the outlook for this market is looking quite promising. So as others are saying, perhaps it will be over soon for the impact. Well, thanks everyone for voting. The results will be shown in the slides after the webinar. So don't worry if you want to access that data. In terms of a bit more about what we're talking about today, so we at Delta U focus a lot on what we call connected climate control and connected home energy controls. So we are doing a lot of research on everything related to controlling heat and cooling. So smart thermostat for boiler heat pumps, connected radiator valves, connected electric heating, air conditioning, underfloor heating, and hot water tanks. So these are some of the things we are going to talk about today. We'll also talk about, let's say, upcoming services that look very promising, particularly home energy management and remote heating diagnostics, which a lot of companies are looking at the moment, and a bit more about what we call home automation products that have a link to energy, specifically connected lighting, smart plugs, and speakers, who obviously have a huge impact on other types of products and cross-selling these products. In terms of the specific agenda, so we'll spend 10 minutes on each of these parts. The first one is looking at the most popular products in the connected home energy space, so namely smart thermostats, TRVs, electric heating, and some home automation products like I just talked about. We will then look at the less known or the more emerging products. For example, we just completed a study on underfloor heating and the connectivity for controls. Likewise for connected air conditioning, which emerges quite a lot in Southern Europe. We'll talk about remote diagnostics specifically and what are the trends. We'll talk about home energy management briefly. And finally, a study we are currently carrying out on the connected hot water tanks, which again looks very promising for a number of reasons. And finally, we'll talk a bit about a few markets that are evolving in specific ways. We'll talk about Germany, Spain, Italy, and France. But obviously, if you want to talk to us more about other markets, we are very happy to do so if we have time at the end or later on the conversation afterwards. So initially, just to start with the first part, we'll talk about the top-selling connected home products, starting with smart thermostats, and I will hand over to my colleague Ricardo, who will talk to you guys about this. Ricardo?
Yeah, thank you, Arthur. Yeah, well, let's talk about smart thermostat. Well, a smart thermostat is the most popular, most important climate control in Europe. Actually, just by the end of last year, it reached over 5 million households. So it shows it proves how big it is. And the important thing is what is the driver for this growth? And basically, if you can show the animation, Arthur. Yeah, thank you. There's a few reasons, and to start with is just the connectivity awareness. Like customers are already aware of the importance or the benefits of having these connected controls at home. They are aware of the benefits such as comfort or savings in the energy bill. And this leads as well to the government incentive as well. The government and industry is pushing for this. The government is giving some incentives to the households to acquire this control efficiency connected controls at home. As well, the industry is pushing for getting not only one-off sales, but pushing towards services to get a recurring revenue, which are some like the remote diagnostics, heat as a service, and home energy management, where the smart thermostat is very important of these services. So that's roughly a few market drivers that why we see the smart thermostat market to keep growing in the next few years.
Yeah, and actually, what interesting fact, Ricardo, is that I mean, a few years ago, it was really hard for governments, for installers, and people selling controls to prove the savings of such products. But now that we have 5 million smart thermostats installed in Europe, it seems like there are trends in terms of energy savings, actually, and which I think is quite useful to get to mass market to prove people that they are saving money while installing this. And now it sounds like there are a lot of proofs that smart thermostat can save 10-15% on the energy bill, and that they pay off in 1 or 2 years, and therefore governments are much more willing and keen to push for this product. So that's perhaps one of the new things that we're observing in the last year or so.
Yeah, that's correct. At the moment, the UK and Netherlands are the leading countries. They have the highest sales units at the moment, and relatively high or important penetration in the market. And one interesting fact at the moment is that these 7 brands that we can see in the slide, they hold around the 80% of the market share at the moment. So, but we see other brands coming, showing a bit more affordable options. But yeah, at the moment, this is how it is the market.
Yeah, quite a bit of Eastern Europe and Asian brands coming to the market in Europe. So perhaps with cheaper prices, and we could expect the market to accelerate with lower budget smart thermostats. So that would be an interesting trend to follow in the next few years. Alex, talking about connected TRVs, so connected radiator valves.
Yeah, so connected TRVs sales are also growing in Europe. However, contrary to smart thermostat, I would say that the market remains nascent. And this is because in most European countries, connected TRVs are mainly used as an add-on to a central climate control, such as a smart thermostat, for instance. And the cost and complexity of such a solution still hinder its penetration. So I would say that Germany is an exception to this trend because there is a limited penetration of smart thermostat, so it has benefited the connected TRV market. So for example, to put it as a number, the German installed base was 15 times higher than in the UK, which is the second largest European market. So that's quite impressive. And so consequently, European leaders are established German players, such as EQ3 or Tado, etc. Another interesting, Arthur, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just about to mention the difference between Germany and the rest of Europe mostly is that there are a majority of district heat buildings in Germany, which means customers don't have a central thermostat to replace. And therefore, one of the only choices to have is to replace the controls on the radiators, which are the TRVs. And the district heat market is much smaller in other key European countries, which partly explains why Germany is a bit of a special market.
Absolutely.
Okay. Moving on to connected electric heating, Sushang, this is a market quite interesting, particularly for France.
Yes, exactly. So maybe the connected electric heating is not, the whole market is not as big as the previous 2 ones, but I think it is getting more and more dynamic. We have seen many market players becoming more and more active in this area. Most of them are manufacturers, but also seeing some of the energy suppliers being interested in this specific product, because electric heating could be a very important key for to be combined with solar self-consumption, home energy management, and also an asset for the flexibility. So no surprise that France is the biggest market for this. So basically 30% of the space heating systems in France are direct electric heating. You can also find another 10% for heat pumps. So it is also powered by electricity. France is the biggest country for connected electricity now, and I think it is still continue to be the biggest one in the future, because in France there are still many incentives to push the high efficiency connected electric heating in market. So connectivity as a technology that can improve the efficiency of the heating systems, I think it is going to play a very important role in this whole process. Exactly.
We have a question actually from Steen. what's roughly the percentage of homes being heated by electric heating which are connected? Perhaps that number is below 1%, to be honest. It's still a small market, a relatively small market, and you still need to connect to have one connectivity module per panel or per group of panel, which still increases the install cost for the customer. But given the size of the market and given the push for the manufacturers and the growing interest for connectivity, we do believe that this is going to accelerate quite fast. And as Sushang explained, the self-consumption, the home energy management, etc., all this market is going to have a huge impact on that, because electric heating is very easy to control in terms of reaction time for heat, and when people need it, it can be quite reactive. So we do sense that this market is going to evolve very fast because of this.
Yes, as more and more energy suppliers are moving into this market, I think the scale of the customers is not something I'm worrying about. So yeah, the market is becoming more and more dynamic, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Before I move on, I got another question. So what is higher in France, direct electric heating or electric to water heating system? Electric to water heating system, my guess is we are talking about heat pumps, perhaps. I'm not sure, but just to give you an overall view about France, yes, 30-40% of the French market is direct electric panels. A few percent is with air to water heat pumps, and then you have a lot of electric hot water tanks in the market, either with heat pumps or with electric heating or with non-combi boilers. So the market for hot water tanks is actually quite big, and there is, as we'll talk about in a few minutes, actually, there is quite a big opportunity for connecting hot water tanks in France and in other countries as well. Moving on to home automation, so speakers, lighting, plugs.
Yeah, so according to our study, around 10 million European households acquired the smart speakers in 2019, and this is led by Germany and the UK. And we expect the annual sales to double by 2022. And this is mostly driven by the recent expansion in other European countries. Unsurprisingly, Amazon continues to lead the European market, but Google keeps pushing to grow its market share year by year. And so the large penetration of smart speakers in Europe has strongly benefited connected lighting, mainly because the voice control use case combined with the easiness of installation of smart lights is very appealing and simple to understand for customers. And we see a lot of competitors launching on the market with either cheaper products or premium products.
Yeah, it's actually quite funny. I wanted to equip my flat with connected lighting recently, and I've been following that market for almost 8 years now, and I couldn't recognize the top-selling brands that I could find on Amazon. It sounds like there are lots of Chinese companies actually entering the market with lower price products. Some of them work fine, some of them work less fine. Trust my experience, but it's interesting to see that market being disrupted by lots of new products which invade the market. So yeah, we saw it as being quite dynamic and prices moving down, which is good for the customer. So this could be increasing very fast.
Yeah, and rapidly to finish on smart plugs, despite being quite straightforward to install, they offer limited use cases, considering that more and more home products can have connectivity built in. And consequently, the penetration of this product remains low in Europe, but sales are still increasing. And there is one exception to this. It's the Nordics, where smart plugs are used to control direct electric heating appliances, for instance, which are often supplied from wall plugs directly.
Yeah, that could be quite an interesting thing we haven't said about the French market for electric heating, is that there is some sort of standard to control the electric panels, which is called a field pilot in French. And this standard doesn't necessarily exist in other countries. And Norway has a big penetration of direct electric heating, which is plugged into a socket, and smart plugs could actually be used as a way of retrofitting these solutions. But in a way, anyone who wants to program an appliance and to control it remotely could be using a smart plug. So it's not a very popular product, let's say, but it's something that could be very useful for more home automation in the future. We have a question about what about the Italian and Spanish market for connected thermostats? Thank you, Juan Carlos. So we are going to talk about Italy and Spain actually later on in this webinar. So I encourage you to be a little bit patient, and we will mention what we think is happening in these markets. One question from Leonardo: do smart speakers impact the domotics market, offering a much cheaper and easy installed solution? Domotics, I guess, refers to home automation at the house level, and do they offer a cheaper and easy to install solution? I don't think speakers are actually impacting that market particularly. What they are impacting is the use case perceived by the customer. So let's say controlling your light remotely with your phone is not that appealing of a use case. But if suddenly you put the voice into that, and you are used to controlling your music or other things with your voice, then having in your mind to control light or something else remotely by voice is making it very simple. So once you have speakers in your home, you are much more likely to buy connected lighting. And I think we had done customer research recently around this, which showed that actually customers who own the speaker were much more likely to buy connected home products. So that could be an interesting thing as well if you want to sell such products. Moving on to emerging technologies. So the products we've been talking about so far are things we have looked at for many years now, and if you have been following our webinars, it's nothing new to you actually. But what's really interesting is the new sort of connected climate controls that are emerging, like underfloor heating, AC, hot water tanks. We're going to talk a bit more about the early findings we've had from researching these markets, and what we believe will grow and why. Particularly, yeah, as I said, connected AC, underfloor heating, hot water tanks, and I will finish with home energy management and remote diagnostics, which are the two newish services that will grow rapidly in Europe. Ricardo, could you talk to us more about your research on connected underfloor heating?
Yeah, for sure. Well, yeah, as Arthur mentioned, this emerging technology is quite appealing. We find that the connected underfloor heating is a very interesting opportunity for many connected control companies, and the reason behind this is one of them is, as mentioned, with the smart thermostat connectivity awareness. Like, customers are aware of the benefits and the more important the savings in by adding this connectivity to their heating appliances. So yeah. Yeah, part of it is also led by the requiring or the uptaking of more efficient heating systems, such as heat pumps or district heating, and this particularly work very well with underfloor heating as require low temperature. So that is and adding connectivity to these heating systems is very pushing towards for this particularly for connected home underfloor heating. Sorry. We in our research we saw that there's an interesting install base for in underfloor heating, and it's particularly attracting the new builds, but also is important for renovations, and particularly for the new builds is more attractive to add connectivity, since you are buying a new house or installing new heating. Most of the time you want an efficient heating system.
Yeah, Ricardo, it sounds like governments are actually putting in new regulations that favor underfloor heating compared to other heating emitters in homes. And as I said, therefore, perhaps you could sell the home pre-connected, and which is less of a hassle for installers to install. So we see that as a potential driver in the new build sector because of regulations.
Yeah, that's correct. Actually, that was a as you mentioned, the regulation pushing for more efficient buildings and more efficient systems. That's actually benefiting the connected underfloor heating in Europe. Yep.
And I don't know if you have tested underfloor heating, depending on the country you are in, but it's a heat that's much nicer to have in your home. You don't have this cold feet problem, and yeah, and we expect this to be even bigger in the renovation market. I think the UK is quite strong on that. Because it makes it quite interesting. There are a few problems with underfloor heating. I guess installation needs to be better because to retain the heat. But as governments are pushing for better thermal envelopes for buildings, we see on connected underfloor heating particularly as one of the ways to help out on this. So something to follow a bit more.
Yeah, thank you. Here we can see just a short diagram of how the underfloor heating works, and we just identified the most important parts, which is the wire center that communicates with the heating source. Most of the time is gas boiler or heat pumps or more efficient systems. That connects and communicates with the heating source, turning it on or off, so it can heat up the water, and it goes to the manifold that is also controlled by the wire center. And depending how many zones or rooms you have, it distributes the water flow to heat up the room that you want to. Yeah.
So if I understand correctly, Ricardo, the manifold is something that has a number of valves, basically, and each valve goes to one of the rooms and things like that. So if you turn off one of the valves, that room is not heated, and if you turn it on, it's heated, basically. That's correct?
That's correct, exactly. It's like a part that has different tubes that goes to different rooms, and each of them have a valve or to either close or regulate the flow of water that is distributed to each zone or room. Yeah.
Okay. And there are different ways then to connect such system, because it's not simple as just a thermostat, but it's a bit more complex. So can you tell us more about how this can be connected?
Yeah, if you click also in the next, So when you have in order to control this wire center, you have a room thermostats or a central thermostat. But typically, it's a room thermostat that you can have either wireless or wired. If it's wired, sometimes it goes connected directly to the wire center, but sometimes you can find wireless versions that typically use RF like radio frequencies communication that goes to the radio gateway that is connected to this to communicate to the wire center. So there's two options there. It depends what suits more to into the house, but works in the same principle. And this radio gateway communicates to a Wi-Fi hub or central hub, which this one is the one that allows you to control it from your phone, your browser, adds the connectivity to it. And
okay, so basically what the customer sees is just the temperature on the room thermostats if they are connected, or on the app on the phone, and then can connect to other products in the home via API or via integration like in the home. So this is quite a complex system, but actually for the customer's perspective, it's exactly the same as any other heating control system.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Okay, moving on to connected air conditioning. So as you probably know, summer has been quite warm. Sushan, can you explain to us a bit more about how does that work and what you see emerging in the space?
Yes, of course, Arthur. Like you say, maybe compared to the other global markets, the AC market in Europe has started very slowly, because we didn't have the problem of the very hot summers, but today people are having the experience of more and more hot temperatures. And connectivity is something very important to AC, because I'm hearing companies telling me that people want more quick and cooling experience than heating experience. So you can see that there are cooling system manufacturers and also some control companies using different approaches to connect the air conditioners. One of the traditional way is to connect the AC through IR signals. Arthur, I think it would be better if you show some of the name of the brands on the right. Yeah, exactly. So you can see some control companies, they put wall-mounted control device using IR signal to control the indoor units and connect the gateway to the local internet. Then you can control the gateway through your like a laptop or a mobile app. There are also the AC manufacturers embedded the Wi-Fi interface in the new models of the air conditioners. So you can directly connect your air conditioners with the your local internet and to control it through your mobile phones. There are also
is that very common to have AC manufacturers, especially the brands, they are always connecting with Wi-Fi, or is it like a premium version that's been connected and more expensive? How common is that?
I think today it's more like a premium model, and it won't account for more than 10% of their new sales, but it's becoming more and more popular to have these kind of new functionalities because people are more aware of the connectivities. They want to have these functionalities. If your competitor is doing this, I don't see any reason that you don't put this in your in the functionality of your new products, especially for the flagship models. Yeah, so we were just talking about there are still some kind of approaches like the GSM. So you use your 4G to connect your air conditioners. This is more used in the holiday homes or secondary homes, like in the Nordics. There are also some smart plugs to control your AC, but it's more like to switch on, switch off. So it's not, it couldn't provide many kind of functionalities to it.
Yeah, I guess it's an interesting solution if you have a secondary home or if you manage a renting home far away from where you are, to just control the temperature and avoid well, first have the right comfort for the tenants when they arrive, but also avoid unnecessary cost and carbon emissions for when no one is in the house. So that could be one way to avoid that. We had a question as well on why controlling underfloor heating remotely, because often people advise that the temperature should be kept as stable as possible. Well, again, that's one of the use cases possible where you go on holidays or this is a holiday home and you want to actually control that remotely in order to avoid unnecessary costs or to adjust the temperature. Sometimes it's much easier. So this is one of the use cases that are quite new, I'd say, but it could be quite important for that market.
Yeah, that's important. Like you're mentioning, like for example in the Nordics, or especially like second homes or holiday homes that you're away and you don't want to, if it's too cold there, you want to give kind of maintenance to the pipes, not to get the pipes frozen, and you can enable just remotely.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Interesting market, but I think it will remain niche and pretty much a niche market for the use of GSM control.
Okay. Let's move on then to remote diagnostics. So for those of you who don't know what remote diagnostics is, it's either on a boiler or a heat pump. It's someone getting data and insight about the performance and errors of the boilers to better understand remotely if an intervention is needed, what kind of intervention, what kind of parts need to be replaced, etc. And we see that market quite interesting to grow in the next few years.
Yes, I think when we talk about remote diagnostics, we are mostly focused on the remote heating system diagnostics. So already have a big market for the boiler diagnostics, and today we see more and more market players moving on to heat pump diagnostics, because there are heat pumps are emerging technology in heating system, and it is growing very fast. The two biggest markets for remote boiler diagnostics are the UK and the Netherlands, mostly being pushed by some of the big energy suppliers and as well as the home service providers like the Eneco, British Gas. Some other countries, for example, France, Italy, Belgium and Spain, they're also growing very fast, and we see a great growth potential in the future. Some interesting trends in the market today that we are observing is that actually people are more and more interested in to develop the new route market through the social landlords. Imagine that the social housing associations, they have to deal with, or they have to monitor hundreds or thousands of the heating systems, and there are less access for the residents and the tenants to control the heating system. So the remote diagnostic can really efficiently help with the management of this kind of devices. So I can think of 2 use cases to use the remote heating system diagnostics. So for example, it can avoid some unnecessary visit of the maintenance. So I think more than 40% of the visits are unnecessary. You can tell the tenants how to fix the problem by themselves, or even to send them some instructions remotely to solve the problem. And also it can save the time when the technicians are coming to your house. It can directly and very intuitively know what is the problem, what is the failure, and it can really save the time when they are doing the maintenance works. So yeah, that is basically why it is becoming very interesting for social landlords. Another trend that, sorry.
So one interesting thing actually during the COVID-19 crisis is that most plumbers could not get into the homes to repair the boilers, but having knowledge about what the problem is allowed people to actually guide customers to fix the problem themselves when it was possible. And a lot of companies who use remote diagnostics have said that actually a huge part of their customers were dealt with remotely directly during COVID. So whenever you can't access the home, this is a great solution to have, and perhaps this could be the case for some time again. So yeah, one solution to respond to such crisis.
Yeah, I think so. Arthur, I see a question from Lithin that why remote diagnostic is not popular in Germany. Yeah, you can add your opinions, but from my point of view, I think the home service market in Germany is very fragmented. You can see a lot of small home service providers in Germany. So it's very hard to have a higher scale of the volume for these kind of services.
Yeah, exactly. I think you're right. That's the main reason. But we know that the major boiler brands are working on that and perhaps trying to offer a service themselves. We'll see as the market develops, because there are a lot of trends in heat, particularly one called heat as a service, where customers get the whole package of products and energy together, and boiler manufacturers and energy suppliers offer this. But you need to include some sort of remote diagnostics in this to be as efficient as possible. We see Germany as the leading market for heat as a service, and therefore we see that remote diagnostics will be a key part, and that could grow through that. So we will see how this develops, but it's true that today the market is too fragmented to really have a strong impact on that.
Yep.
Okay. Thanks, Sushang. Moving on to the trends in home energy management, Adik. So the optimization of the energy flows in the home and how connectivity is helping doing this.
Yeah, so HEM is becoming a huge topic in the energy transition debate. And at Delta E, we are actually closely monitoring this market, mainly because we think that it could become a strong ongoing revenue stream for connected home players. So according to our estimation, the HEM install base will reach 2.2 million households by 2023. And the Nordics, especially Norway and Germany, are the most dynamic markets, and this trend is likely to continue in the next 5 years. We also see an increasing number of companies, especially energy suppliers, which have launched their HEM proposition in the last 2 years. So we tried to track all the players entering the market, and we found that more than 50 players are already active on the HEM market. And a lot of this so far only focusing on optimization of self-consumption or time of use tariff, especially in the Nordics, and a bit in the UK. But then we have a small number of players adding flexibility values, trying to support the grids, And lastly, some of them are also looking at energy community angles, so how to enable peer-to-peer trading or local energy communities, things around that.
Thank you, Alex. Yeah, really interesting market, and perhaps linked a bit more to the energy transition, which is accelerating at the moment. It's true that connectivity is enabling this to happen, and the link between connected heating, particularly electric heating, and home energy management will be critical for the next for the development of this market, and actually particularly around hot water tanks, Ricardo. We see a lot happening in this space, and companies starting to retrofit electric hot water tanks. Can you say a bit more about what's happening in this space?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you're right. Like you were saying, particularly this report is it's an ongoing research we're having at the moment, but we see a huge opportunity on particularly for hot water tanks, as the reason you mentioned. One of them is HEM, but the reason behind it is that hot water tanks has a very large install base. It's over 40 million hot water tanks in Europe, and every year it's around 3 million replaced. So there's a huge opportunity for either retrofitting controls or even the hot water tanks with embedded connectivity. And we see a few benefits for either both the customer or the industry. Particularly for the customers, we see that comfort is a really important thing, or like peace of mind, that knowing for sure that you will have hot water whenever you need it, and that your family will have the access to hot water, like even if it's too cold, and not to have problems that sometimes you just run out of hot water. So that's very interesting.
I used to have a hot water tank in Scotland when I used to live there, and believe me, I had a few cold showers, and it's quite upsetting for people, and I'm quite sure people are willing to pay a few, maybe 100 euros, 200 euros to install something where you can detect before you're in the shower that the water will be cold. So I really believe the peace of mind aspect of that can be a huge driver for the market.
Exactly, because adding connectivity can sometimes some products understand your or predict your consumption, so actually generates or heat the water as you need, but like not more than what you need, but when you need it as well. So that's a very important benefit. On the other side, for the benefits is similar, like my colleague Alex mentioned, that adding connectivity can add support to the grid and accessing some flexibility values. As we said, there's a huge install base and there's a lot of electric loads at home. So this could be a really good benefit for both the customer and the industry. Here we can see some just a few companies that are active or trialing some of the products. For example, Eneco is retrofitting some hot water tanks, and this is in the Netherlands, and they're accessing some flexibility values there. Climate is trialing a controller, animation controller in the hot water tank. This particularly in Ireland, but it's active as well in the UK, and is able to control it and as well accessing some flexibility values.
We can see, Ricardo, a lot more companies actually entering this market, and there are probably all the hot water tank manufacturers who are thinking about what to do there and what to prioritize. And I think it's fair to expect that tens of companies will be offering products in the market in the next few years because of the potential you just explained, and even more so with the energy transition, which will link to home energy management, flexibility, sharing electricity, etc. So that would be quite
exactly. It's not only suppliers and not only HVACs, but as well, as you mentioned, like home energy management platforms, or even companies that are just designing platforms to access flexibility values. It's a huge asset and a huge opportunity for it.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Ricardo. I'm conscious of time, actually. As I say, we are quite keen to talk about these products and offerings. We will try to accelerate a bit more on the interesting trends for some of the markets, starting with Germany. So perhaps, Alex, no more than 1 minute per country.
Okay, I will try to keep it short then, Arthur. So main points, RTRV stays the heating control the most sold in Germany. We've said that already. And despite the COVID crisis, annual sales have increased by a double-digit number last year. The retail channel stays the leading one in Germany in 2019, with online stores generating the largest volume sold. And we think that online retail stores are likely to continue capturing shares as they are expanding their portfolio of products. Also, the wholesale installer channel has maintained its share, and the energy supply channel is a little bit less proactive than it was a year ago. Lastly, I'd like to mention that in the heat leasing market, we see a lot of activities. So Thermondo was the first digital platform provider for boiler sales. And in 2016, it introduced its solution, a leasing solution that includes the system and maintenance. And since then, we've seen that several companies, so energy suppliers, boiler providers, HVAC manufacturers, have followed this path and they now offer heat leasing to their customers. And we expect this kind of offer to really favor the uptake of connected control in Germany.
Yeah, especially like if I'm buying, I don't know, 20 degrees as a service, I expect the controls to be connected in order to follow what I want and to monitor my consumption. So yeah, I agree. This could be a huge boost for connectivity in heating systems in Germany. Ricardo, how is Spain doing in the last year or so?
Yes, Spain is growing as fast. We can see like really important growth in this country in particular. Last year, from 2018 to 19, grew 34% in connected home controls. Particularly is the most important at the moment is connected lighting, but we see. And this is because it's easy to acquire, is relatively cheap. You can find cheap solutions, so it's the entry point to enter the connected home market. But we see important growth in both smart thermostat and connected AC. This is basically like we know that the Spain has it can be really warm, particularly in the south. So we can split the country in basically north and south. That in the north they can use more the heating than in the south. And the question before, the penetration of smart thermostat in Spain is just under 2%, but we actually think that is going to keep growing more, but because of services like we said, the remote diagnostics, particularly heat pumps uptake in Spain is becoming really important. Is one of the most important markets in Europe as well. And we can see that, for example, underfloor heating, particularly in the new build, is very important. And Spain has a large installed base of hot water tanks, so we can see these three services growing particularly high in the next few years.
Okay, so if I summarize, if you're a manufacturer of these products, perhaps Spain could be the next one of the next big markets to try to go into to grow your sales.
Yep.
Thank you, Ricardo. Sushang, a bit more about the Italian market.
Yep. Yeah, just want to quickly go through the Italian market. So the Italian connected home market started a little bit late. The real takeoff is after 2018, when the Google Home and Amazon smart speaker came into the market. But suddenly the market began to boom. You can see around 50% of growth rate during 2018 and also 2019. One reason is because they are starting from a smaller volume, but it also shows that market is very dynamic. And something interesting to mention is perhaps it is the largest market for the connected AC in Europe, also the biggest installed base of air conditioners in Europe. Connected lightings and smart thermostats are also growing very fast. Both of them are above the average growth rate. I think the sales channels are quite traditional. People are still used to purchase the connected home products from retailing and also from some of the professional channels. So the retailing include both the online and offline retailing. It is likely that energy suppliers are playing relatively smaller role in the Italian market.
Yeah, although we've seen NLX announcing a big strategy for connected first the smart thermostat, but for home energy management connectivity strategy, and perhaps they could be pushing for that, but it's still early days from NL to really judge on whether they can grow the channel of energy suppliers compared to the rest of the channels. It's worth mentioning that the Italian market has a big boiler market as well, so smart thermostat could potentially be a big market as well there.
Yeah, exactly.
Finally, talking a little bit about France, we talked about it with the electric heating, so I won't mention too much, but the smart thermostat market in France for boilers is growing quite fast as well. All the major brands are offering this. You can see that on most websites now. Connectivity is becoming accepted in France, and we believe smart thermostats for boilers and electric heating will be growing quite fast. France is probably the biggest installed base of electric hot water tanks, and most companies are trying to innovate around this. And therefore, we believe this will be the #1 market for connected hot water tanks in the next few years, and there are big opportunities for everyone there. In terms of market shares, French people don't really trust their energy suppliers. They mostly go on Amazon or similar online retail to buy products. But increasingly, actually, people trust more and more installers, and installers start to be more and more aware of these connectivity products. So there could be a shift towards more professional channels taking the share of the growth of this market as well. And finally, there's a big trend in France towards self-consumption of PV and optimizing this. So potentially an interesting area for home energy management to grow, and lots of players are positioning themselves for this market. So interesting to follow the developments on HEM in France. And some summary of like the key players in all the products we've talked about. So you can see that in the slides afterwards if you want more details, but this is just a snapshot of the leading players. Well, thanks a lot for listening. Just a bit word about us and the research we've been doing. So I'm hoping that that this was interesting and that you got interested in the research. So just to tell you a bit more about what we have been doing. We have just published a study on connected underfloor heating with some of the table of content and a snapshot here. This will basically allow you to better understand the opportunities, the competitor landscape, the regulations, anything that's really needed to make decisions in this space. We have updated our study on remote diagnostics to better understand how boiler remote diagnostics is evolving, but also heat pumps, because manufacturers of heat pumps are getting increasingly interested in this. So we just published this summer as well. We've also published our annual, I think our 7th annual state of the market for Europe for all these products. So basically giving you all the sales data you need, our forecasts, the trends, the key players, how things are evolving, the size of the market in terms of money actually as well, the differences between services, products, installation, etc. So this is available now as well with our sales database, which will list all the sales of each product by country, by channel, by brand, etc., which basically helps anyone in this market compare, benchmark, and analyze what's going on. We've also published before summer a study on interoperability for home energy management. So we've had a few questions on protocols, which we haven't had time to answer. But basically, this is quite interesting to understand how you can connect different appliances in the home and which standards, which organizations are trying to create common protocols. The answers can be quite varied between countries, and this is quite important if you want to make decisions around this space. And yeah, for those of you who don't know Delta EE, we don't just focus on heating and connectivity, but we focus on the whole energy transition market. We have research around the changes in the electricity system with flexibility, storage, energy communities. We are doing a lot of research on how the EV charge point market is impacting Europe and the strategies of different companies. And as you can see, lots more research impacting the energy transition. So if you want to hear more about anything about our reports on Connected Home or anything else, please feel free to get in touch. And yeah, just just to finish, thank you, Alex, Ricardo, Sushang, for all your insights and work around this. I think that has been a quite interesting discussion. Most of the people have stayed until the end, so I guess this was quite useful for everyone. As I said, we will share the slides with you afterwards if you want to. We'll put this recording on YouTube so that you can watch it again or share with colleagues. And yeah, if you have any question, want to discuss more, please feel free to get in touch. We're always keen to exchange more on this topic. So thank you, everyone. Have a good day and speak to you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Arthur. Bye.
Thanks, Arthur. Thanks, all. Bye.